Stephen, can you tell us how you teach if you have a seminar?
Certainly. We're always dealing with students, dealing with them wanting to reach a next level.
Yeah.
And so the first area we're really diving into is their performance, ability to play the game, how that relates to a score. And as a coach, our goal is to try and identify what are the weak areas, what are the strong areas.
Yeah.
Essentially, what can we influence the most in the shortest amount of time and over the longest amount of time. I would hold that statement true even if I'm teaching a new golfer, someone that's trying to break 90, 100, 90, 80, or they're trying to get to another level of tournament golf. I'm still looking at where are they currently on that spectrum of performance, albeit a beginner probably hasn't seen the golf course before. So performance results for them is getting the ball in the air after 30 minutes or one lesson. So we have these different expectations along the way, but that's always the first. It's me understanding where they are at that point of their game, what are their goals, what are their expectations, and really important off the bat is, does their commitment level match their expectation level? Are they going to put in the time it takes to get to the senior tour when they're 45 and they're a 6 handicap or whatever that might be? Because when we go down a certain pathway, they need to understand it is going to take this much time. One of my juniors who won 2 world championships in Singapore recently spends about 3 to 4 hours a day working on her game as a 12-year-old. So we know that this doesn't magically happen. So whether you're a working class person and they tell me they have 3 hours a week or 2 hours, I'm trying to maximize that amount of time for their practice. Can they play once a week, 3 times a month, once a month? I really need to figure that out first. Once we've laid that out, then we're kind of getting into some sort of assessment of their game. So it would be kind of, I feel like, phase 1 of how I teach and what do I look for. Phase 2, I'm then diving into which area of the game have we decided that we're going to put attention on. With better players, we do have the advantage of looking at statistics because they generally keep more data. But let's say less serious golfers, probably 90% of golfers that come to us want to improve their swing. They want to hit the ball more solid. They want to be able to drive the ball longer and straighter. So I appreciate that and understand that a large percentage of my students want to get into swing stuff. But I also have to make sure that they understand that hitting the ball more solid doesn't necessarily equal a much lower score. They could still be making poor decisions. They might be hitting it a little straighter and close to the green, but they're still chunking 3 or 4 chip shots in a round. But it's certainly something I try and get my students to understand when we're going through that kind of development phase, if you like. When we're getting into coaching, where we want a more deeper understanding of what the student is about, how they train, and a better understanding of their game. And we kind of deep dive into their thought process, maybe why they're having trouble down the stretch, where their attention's going, and we just lay out a little bit of a game plan for how they can think differently down the stretch. It could be breathing techniques, it could be routine, it could even be sometimes me telling them that it might be time to step up. They might just need a little bit of a kick to understand that this is the next level. And if they don't learn it fast, they're going to be on the sidelines there. So as a coach, it is a lot more across the board. It's not just someone coming in and doing a golf lesson and me transacting my knowledge. There is that involved, and we're about to go through a bunch of stuff for sure. But it's again looking at all parts of the game, mental management, short game, full swing, obviously, all these parts, and see which of the areas again that we can influence the most in the shortest amount of time, and which areas that we need to target, over a longer term period so they can reach their goals. Again, I dive straight into full swing because this is largely the lessons that we get with students. They've videoed themselves on the range. They don't like the picture. ultimately they don't like the type of shot that they're getting because it's misdirected, because it's misstruck, and perhaps it's not far enough. So I'm always starting with their ability to strike the ball solid first. That would always be my first area that I'm looking at, if you like, my first fundamental. The grip, we've covered it extensively. It's not really a fundamental. It's something that everyone has to do.
Right.
It's an absolute. It's definitely more of preference of some sort.
Right.
When we're talking about improving someone's contact, all the best players, there are things that have to happen around the golf ball. Body position have to be and how they have to move. When we're talking about curve, understanding of what controls curve, player is going to strike the ball at a certain angle, downwards, inwards, if you like, and it's going to produce, or outwards, and it's going to produce a certain curvature on the golf ball. Our goal is to tighten that dispersion, tighten that pizza slice, if you like, so they can play a more consistent game across the board. And then we have the area of speed. It could be most important for some. I tend to put it more in the second or third category because to me, if a player's not striking the ball solid enough, adding speed can be often a disaster. They would often struggle to hit the center of the face and control the direction at the same speed as what might be they're comfortable doing. Now, at some point, it's very common when I'm teaching that I'm often reducing club head speed, but increasing ball speed, which we can talk about, which is quite interesting. So it's not just about maximizing speed. In a putt, we have a very low speed strike. Same with chipping, same with certain finesse wedge shots. We're not trying to power those shots. So speed is more of an understanding of, yes, there's raw speed, but also how do we manage or control speed in other parts of the game. So we need to think about it that way. And probably the last fundamental, although this would not be necessarily a hard rule, but it's certainly something that I think in the advent of golfers getting stronger, physically being able to create more speed, we have to be aware of to prevent injury, to make sure that there's longevity in the game. And even though we've seen some very interesting looking movement patterns over the years, I'm very cognizant of, let's say, one of my players moving in a manner that I feel could cause injury. So even though, yes, contact, yes, curve, yes, speed's important, I also am a little bit mindful that there's a duty of care that I'm taking my players through to make sure that they're not getting injured by doing what they're doing. So those are kind of like the baselines, and then we can kind of get into what I would call cause and effect. So where would I start if a student was in, let's say, a dysfunctional top of swing, and it didn't matter what I told them about impact, they weren't able to get a consistent strike on the ball. So we have all these starting points, I would say, or what I would look for at the beginning, which would then lead me into focusing more on contact, more perhaps on a setup or takeaway position, or maybe stabilizing a top of swing, because I felt that they have enough athletic ability to move through to a solid impact.
All right, okay. Let's talk about cause and fix in the takeaway.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do that.
구독, 좋아요, 감사합니다.